today the movie of the week, C.H.U.D, 1984. 1984, a very good year for movies. C.H.U.D could stand for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers. It could also stand for Contamination Hazard Urban Disposal. It's clever. It could stand for a gross, physically unappealing person, according to a Google search. Or it could also stand for a term historically applied in the early East Slavic annals to several Baltic Finns in the area of what is now Estonia. Chud or Chuds, if you will.
All those are accurate.
1984, Toxic Avenger also came out at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't help but kind of compare the two movies, even though I don't really remember much about the Toxic Avenger. It does kind of deal with the same thing almost.
Fairly similar.
Chemical waste.
Mm-hmm.
I know how I feel about it. How do you feel about it? The movie being C.H.U.D.
Well, I will say, compared to The Toxic Avenger, I enjoyed this film more than that film. What about you?
You enjoyed C.H.U.D better than Toxic Avenger?
Yes.
Oh my god. Okay, so when I was watching this movie,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this, we have kind of differed in our opinions on the last two movies. This is a movie that I think we're going to be on the same page about, and I can already tell that we're not going to be. You enjoyed this movie?
I sure did.
Oh my goodness. Okay. What do you have any like bullet points on what you enjoy? Just kind of a general.
Okay. I will give you the quick lowdown on what made this movie so good, in my opinion. I thought the practical effects were very good. I thought the acting was quite good for this type of movie. And the characters were interesting, and it wasn't cheesy, I thought.
I agree with all those points. The chuds I thought were like pretty well done
Mm-hmm.
for 40 years ago almost.
Yeah.
Um, it was they did it a little differently. Like they tried to make this like a decent story, not just like a
Yeah.
character or a monster movie,
Mm-hmm.
which I maybe they tried a little too hard while doing that, in my opinion. Um, but I did like the two main guys. Um, they share a history, which we can get into a little bit later, and the acting was decent, better than what we've had the last few movies.
Yep.
Great, great. The movie I thought, to go negative, to go a little
Mm-hmm.
tombstone, a little Jesse Tombstone on you.
Okay.
I thought it was too slow.
Mm.
I maybe it's because I had such high expectations for this movie, and I just wanted it to be like a monster movie where everything just happened at once, and you're like, okay, we're in this. But
Right.
they had a slow build, like they were trying to do like a Hollywood blockbuster movie when really this wasn't it.
It was a bit of a slow burn, that's for sure.
It took a long time for anything to happen, and then the payoff at the end wasn't worth the slow build, I thought.
Could have done with more of the blood and gore and monsters. It wasn't as much of the film as I would have hoped.
That's all I wanted in this movie. That's why I picked it,
Yeah. But to be fair, like when those moments did happen, they were very well done, in my opinion.
and I agree. Definitely.
Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Well,
Do, do, you,
yep, sorry. Yep.
do you have any idea of the budget for this film?
That's a great question.
It seems like it was probably pretty decent, or they did a lot with a little because the production quality I thought was quite good.
1.25 million for a budget, 4.7 million at the box office.
Okay. Yeah. See, when you described this film to me, and when I had come across it, I guess while I should say I used to collect horror VHS tapes. I still have a bit of a collection, but I used to be way more into it. And this was a film like I always knew about, but I thought it was supposed to be not very good. But I thought it was much better than not good.
Much better than the 29% on Rotten Tomatoes that I got.
Oh yes. certainly. Like when I think of these kind of movies, I just think bad acting, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some cool effects, and that's really all I'm there for. And some cheesy moments that I can laugh at. There wasn't a lot of moments here that I laughed at because it was not meant to be. It wasn't campy. I thought it was more just kind of like well done.
Yeah, maybe that was my problem. I had
Right. You're trying to you're like in that mode ready for like a that type of movie that you can kind of laugh along with and not take too seriously sort of thing or
yeah, because I saw well the first scene in the movie was John Hurd and his girlfriend or wife or whatever,
hmm
like doing photography stuff, and I'm like, okay, what is this? And then we see Daniel Stern, who plays the preacher,
hmm
better known as Marv from Home Alone.
Yep.
And so I thought, okay, he's the comic relief. Um, but I mean, he was funny in parts, and he was
Yeah.
definitely my favorite character in the movie. But he didn't give me that like silliness that I craved.
hmm No, I see what you mean. Like when I first was when it first started out, I realized pretty quick that this isn't a pure like campy movie. That it like I can tell they're actually trying to build a story and have solid acting to lead into an interesting plot. And so I got pretty quickly out of the mode that I'm used to with these types of films and got into more of like taking this as like a serious film. So maybe that's why from the sounds of it, I had a better experience than you did.
I mean, it wasn't a bad experience. It wasn't a well, actually, it probably was a Tombstone, Jesse Tombstone experience, but that's okay. Okay, well, good. I'm happy that you liked it. That's all I want.
Totally, and it made me think of Home Alone because of Daniel Stern and also John Hurt is in Home Alone.
He plays dad.
He plays dad.
Uh,
I thought that was kind of interesting. I think they've done a couple, maybe something else together. There's a lot of like overlap between these actors. There's a lot of pretty big name actors in this movie. I mean, I guess maybe not big name actors, but like well known. There was a lot of like familiar faces.
for sure. A fun fact on John Hurd and Daniel Stern: they never shared a scene in the two Home Alone movies they were in.
That is true. Yeah, never thought of that.
Um, yeah, so we have John Goodman, who was in one scene. I It was late in the movie. I'm like, I haven't seen John Goodman yet. Did I miss John Goodman? But I didn't, because then he showed up in the diner, and
And then actually had lines. Yeah, I thought he was just going to be like some guy in the background, but he actually had lines, and it's kind of crazy just with those few like little lines in those moments. I don't know if this was his first film, but like you could tell that he was a talent. Like he's a talented actor just from that little tiny moment. I thought.
yeah, it looked like he didn't belong there. Like they picked too good of an actor for
Yeah.
that diner scene.
Yeah, I also speaking of like acting, I really liked Captain Bosch.
Yep,
I thought he was very good as well. There was no like, and also the main, I guess, villain, if you will, Wilson.
hmm
I think was his character name.
yep.
He was very good as well. I thought there wasn't very many performances I didn't like. There was all quite solid.
What about the girlfriend in her screams?
Mm. Yeah, I guess she would be the weakest probably out of all the performances, but even then, I thought she brought something unique to the film. Like she was interesting in her own way. I thought.
What about child with ball almost getting trampled by a chud?
Uh, Not bad. He certainly was child with ball.
You could see shadows of arms waving to get the child to
Oh,
come
really?
over. Apparently, yeah. I didn't see it while watching it, but
Oh, I didn't
it was in the
notice.
goof section. So
There. there was a couple of like moments that weren't quite as realistic. I mean, I know this is not a movie you really look for realism, I suppose, but like when like that kid, like that door is like banging, like almost coming off the hinges, and he's just kind of like not really noticing. And a couple times with uh George's girlfriend, I think her name's Lauren.
Sure.
She like when she's taking a shower and then she's like unclogging the drain and then like blood spurts out from the drain.
Yes. Oh
She
yeah.
doesn't have like quite the reaction you would think somebody would.
And then the next scene when she doesn't have blood on her anymore, and she's just like in her apartment, like nothing
Yeah,
happened.
yeah, that was that was a little strange. But no, overall the performances were solid. What didn't so what? I guess your negative experience really came from your expectations of sort of a campy film not coming to fruition. Is that what you're saying?
For the most part, yes. I didn't also like the ending too much.
The ending like didn't involve the chuds as much as I would have liked. Like it almost like it didn't get bookended the way it really should have. Like it became down to like the interaction between the characters and not so much the monsters.
Yeah, the monsters were definitely a secondary character, which is an interesting decision.
It is an interesting decision. I would do
Oh,
wish there was more. I was hoping also for like a transformation scene.
oh
Like
yes, yep.
those are always interesting. I mean, there was one guy, I don't remember his name now, maybe Victor. That sounds kind of familiar, but he was like sort of like in between, but we don't see that sort of transformation. I guess John Hurd's character like goes into that room and there's that one guy who's been like eaten in half, and then Victor, who I think that's what his name is. He's on the bed, like cowering in the corner, and then he turns his head, and he's kind of like looks like halfway between morphing into one of those creatures.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting premise. Like, I guess they did set it up. Like, the story was decent, so you would believe it, and it was a clever story.
It was.
Can't be too mad at that. Have you ever seen the TV show Friends?
Yes.
You may have recognized Doug, Chandler's boss from Friends, who plays a snarky police officer.
Oh yeah, Officer Crespi, I think.
I don't know. It's his actor name. His real name is Sam McMurray.
Yeah, I did recognize him.
And there's Frankie Faison plays another sergeant or something. He's probably somebody you'd recognize. He's been in a lot of movies.
Yeah, I recognize him too. Yeah, yeah. There was like a lot of I don't know if a lot of the people in this film had careers up to this point, but maybe this was the starting point for a lot of these people. I don't know. It seems like it's possible.
I think so.
Yeah, and it was very clear to see, like especially with John Goodman. I don't know if it's his first performance, but if it was, you can really see the beginnings of a excellent actor.
Let's see what he's done up to this point, 1984.
Because I watched recently, I watched one of those YouTube videos where an actor goes over their career, and John Goodman was one I watched. And I think I remember him talking about this film, and I want to say this is one. He was like, "Oh yeah, it started right here," but maybe this was his second film or something. Don't know for
I
certain.
I watched a Nicolas Cage one of those. It was pretty good.
It is interesting. Yeah, I do enjoy those. I really enjoyed like the effects in this movie. Like none of it was cheesy, in my opinion. It was all very well done. Especially like there was a moment with like a severed head, and it looked very convincing. And when there was body parts thrown askew, those were convincing as well.
Back to John Goodman.
Hmm.
He was in a TV movie and it had bit parts in other things. He was in Revenge of the Nerds. He played
Ah, yes.
uh, Coach Harris.
Hmm.
So this 83 and 84 are about the times where things really started to
Okay.
happen for him. I wonder how old he would have been. 1983, 84. He was born in 52, so he would have been like 31 when he got his
Hmm.
start,
Hmm.
which is an interesting age because that's my age. Could I start acting?
Sure, why not?
Why not? They just don't make them like they don't make movies like this anymore.
Not really. I got to say, I was, yeah, so thoroughly impressed. Or do you have anything else you want to add?
No, no. It's again, I come in with an idea of how I feel about the movie, and then you talk, and then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I was wrong and you were right.
Well, don't let my opinions change your mind, unless I'm making you see something you saw and just didn't contextualize it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not just like, oh, you liked it,
So
so
now
I
I'm gonna
should
like it.
like it. No,
Right.
it's because like, oh yeah, okay, that does make sense. That is something that I liked and just forgot about, or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah, this film is much more fresh to me as well. You watched this a couple days ago. I watched it only a few minutes before we started recording. So
Wow. I have one bit of trivia for you.
okay,
The movie's first on-screen victim, the lady and her dog,
yeah,
was
that's
real.
Daniel Stern's wife.
With that, stole that right from me.
Yeah,
Have you seen the 2019 horror movie Us?
no,
Have you heard of it?
yes,
Apparently, it was a big part of the inspiration for the movie, and
hmm.
um, a VHS version of Chud can be seen in the film at some point.
Oh, really? I've been meaning to watch that. So
It's a good movie. Get Out's better, but Us is definitely worth the watch.
yeah, I've seen Get Out. That is very good. Okay, cool.
This was the film debut of Kim Greist, who played, we'll just call her Lauren. It's probably her name. Daniel Stern, who plays, you know,
AJ.
yeah, Christopher Curry, who plays Bosch, and John Polito, who I believe was the like news anchor. Small role. They all appeared together again in the 1995 film Bushwhacked.
Well, there you go.
And that's all the trivia I have for
Okay.
Chud.
Hi, Moose. Sorry, my cat has just jumped up beside me. Do you have anything to say? Can you hear him sniffing? Probably not.
No,
Okay. Well, anyway, Moose says hi.
I do have some news.
Okay, hit me
Uh,
with it.
I have moved my recording studio into the spare bedroom.
It seems like we've done a complete swap because I was in the second bedroom and now I'm in the living room.
Interesting. There's a lot of, baking and cooking that happens
Hmm.
behind me while in the living room. So I've moved now to the spare bedroom, and it's quite lovely.
Well, I moved from this spare bedroom because the cat of which I just spoke likes to scream while when someone is in a room he is not, and he is not able to get into that room.
I
So
haven't heard
just
you screaming yet.
scream and scream and scream, and it may not show up on the podcast, but it drives my partner insane. And so now I'm out here, and Moose has full access to me, and he hasn't made a noise.
Crazy. Okay, so you have anything else to say about this movie, which sounds like it's probably going to be. I'm going to guess you're going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Well, let's do our subtotals, and then we'll see what I say.
Josh and Jesse watched a movie. Now they're going to score that movie out of 10. Out of 10. 10. Okay, so are we scrapping originality forever?
I think maybe we should.
Yeah. I gave it a 5 for originality. You don't see many movies make up their own acronym. Very original.
That's true.
Okay, then ending. I'll let you start on ending.
Right. Well, we touched upon it briefly, and I do got to say the ending is probably one of the weaker parts of this movie. Because yeah, it doesn't feel like it wraps up the main Well, what you feel should be the main focus of this film is the monsters, and really, it just becomes an ending that focuses on the characters, and there's like no closure for that part of the film, which I didn't like very much. And also, it does feel a little bit rushed. Like, oh, the bad guy's coming at us, shoot him, and explosion, and hug, and it's over. I didn't like that so much. So my ending score is not amazing. I have it as a 4.
Interesting. I also gave ending a 4.
Mm.
A truck explodes. An old man shoots the main character. Actually, I mean, I kind of like that though. Like normally in movies, there's the bad guy with a gun,
Mm-hmm.
and like I'm gonna shoot you, but then something happens, and then he doesn't get shot. But then he just gets shot.
Yeah.
He doesn't die,
Right.
but he gets shot pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that they knew they were going to do a sequel, a Chud 2, Bud the Chud, and that's why they didn't write off the Chuds entirely?
That is a good point. It's possible.
I think the second movie was quite a few years after, though, like
Mm.
89 or something. So maybe not, but
Okay.
it could be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't think that there would be a way where you could seal off the sewer and then like stick gas down there to kill everybody.
Right.
I think that sounds like a nice idea, but I don't think it would work in reality.
Yep. True.
Ending a 4, it was disappointing.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree for sure.
I'll start with expectation
Okay.
because mine's going to be. I wanted to give this score a 0 for expectation at the beginning. Like as soon as I turned it off, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Considering how highly,
Raised it is.
yeah, how excited I was for it and how I was told this movie when like even you the last episode, I don't know if it made the cut for the last episode, but you're like this this is a movie that horror film nerds like they have in their
Mm-hmm.
like their top, and it wasn't like that for me. um very slow, very slow build, and that's not what I wanted, so I give it a 2.
Okay.
Expectation score a 2 out of 10 because I wanted it to be so good. And I dreamt about it, how good it was going to be, and it wasn't like that. So
That's fair enough. Yeah, for me, I actually it exceeded my expectations because I had heard that it was good, but I managed to stay pretty apprehensive about that. Like especially like when you look at the cover of this film, like I don't know, it's not very convincing that it's going to be good. I don't know, something about it I didn't hold super high expectations, and then for me my experience was higher than that. So for that I gave it an 8.
that might be the highest expectation score you've ever given a movie.
Probably close.
Fair enough. How did you feel about the acting, even though we've already talked about it?
Well, I like I said, I very much enjoyed the acting. I didn't think there was any bad performances. Some maybe some medium performances, but overall, like a lot of good performances. John Hurd, I thought was one of the ones that was kind of medium. Like you could definitely tell he's a good actor, but maybe it didn't wasn't able to showcase that as much in this film. But characters like Captain Bosch were very good. The main bad guy was good, Wilson. And yeah, even like those small roles, like with John Goodman's character, was very solid. Overall, the acting was quite good. It made me. I felt like it was a real. Like it wasn't like one of those campy horror movies. It was like a real film, and actually acted quite well, even for just like a normal film. Like this, the acting in this movie was miles ahead of something like Tombstone or The Haunting. Like for me, it wasn't even close. So for acting, I pretty high score. I had it as an 8.5.
Okay, that's fair. Acting, I have as a 6.
Hmm.
Maybe if the Chuds did a little more, it would have been higher.
Hmm.
I like Daniel Stern's performance quite a bit. I mean, he was great as Marv in Home Alone. He's great in this. John Hurt wasn't terrible. And yeah, Bosch and most of the cops, like everybody was decent. There wasn't really anybody who you could be like, this doesn't belong here. The homeless lady at the beginning who brought John Hurt to the underground,
Yeah.
she just seemed like she was somebody they found on the street.
Maybe it's just to be more realistic.
Yeah, maybe. But other than that, yeah, 6 for acting. It was fine.
Okay.
Now, score out of 10. I guess I'll go first since it'll be a lower score. And we like to
Okay.
leave our audience with positivity.
Hmm.
So I had watched a movie. Um, I watched Chud and then I watched another movie, which also had 29% on Rotten Tomatoes called Senior Year. It starred Rebel Wilson, and it was
Hmm.
about her. It was a Netflix film about her, a former cheerleader who ended up in a coma for 20 years, and then she came out of the coma and wanted to like continue her life, even though she was a 37-year-old
Mm.
woman. That movie was bad,
Right.
so it was like Monday was just a bad movie day, but that movie was even worse than Chud.
Mm.
I gave that movie a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
This movie, I gave a 4.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Um, that was at the time. The movie probably, if I, it's been 2 days, if I would have thought about it longer, maybe it would have been like 5.5 out of 10. But I'll stick with
Hmm.
my original 4.5 out of 10. It was less than half good
Okay.
for reasons that we've already talked about.
Hmm.
Show,
Yeah, for me, oh, go
show
ahead.
me a chud in the beginning. If you show me a chud in the beginning of the movie, then
You would have
I
been,
it would have been a 5.5.
that's all you need, a chud. Don't we all, really?
Okay, now you can go.
Okay. Yeah, my score is definitely higher than that. I quite enjoyed this movie. I thought it was quite good. The the ending also got like a little ruined for me in another way where, it's quite windy where we are right now, and the power went out about a minute before the movie was over, and so I had to wait like an hour and a half to watch the last minute. So it was like weirdly cut up, I guess. So maybe that changed my experience with the ending, and that's possibly why I gave it the ending such a low score. And so maybe I guess it left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth just for that reason. But I guess I am able to look past that a bit and sort of see the movie as a whole. And my score is not going to be as high as you guessed, but it's going to be pretty close. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Quite enjoyed this one.
Good. I'm glad. That's why I pick movies like this.
Hmm.
For your enjoyment.
Well, success.
Normally, I like the movies that I pick. This one, maybe not so much. But yeah, okay, good.
Great.
Happy. Um, did you listen to our last podcast by any chance?
The last episode of our podcast?
Yeah, the last episode of the podcast where we watched Tombstone and talked about it.
I didn't listen to the whole thing.
Okay, then you might have noticed that the ending when we say goodbye was the exact same as like episode 6, because for some reason the recording cut out and we didn't have just like a goodbye ending, so I had to steal it from another episode.
Okay.
Um,
I gotta say, like, is that me? Where is that one where I go, okay, bye, like
it's
that?
something like that. Yeah, I don't know. You do it every episode,
Mm,
so it doesn't really like you wouldn't really have noticed it. I thought transitioned really well, but some windy recording issues that we might be having reminded me of that. So,
yeah, I was about to say, like, I did listen to the last 10 minutes or so of our last episode for research purposes.
like at the like to the end.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, then you would have heard it.
Yeah, and I do remember it being like, well, that's weirdly familiar. So I guess that's why, because it was the exact same as the ending of another episode.
Plus, I mean, you're saying it, so that's why I'd be familiar because it came from
Yeah,
you.
right.
Have you listened to any podcasts other than ours ever?
No,
You really should do that. Maybe give you some
it's just not
ideas
really my thing,
for
man.
for improving.
Oh, you think I need improving?
No, no, for us to improve the podcast. Maybe they do things where like they play games or something. You're like, oh, we should do that.
That sounds like a lot of work, doesn't it?
It does seem like a lot of work.
I
This
guess
once a
I,
week.
I have like a lot of opportunity at work to listen to podcasts. I guess I could start. I don't know, but then when I start one, I might like start listening to more. And it sounds like a chore.
I'd hate for that to be a chore.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that.
Okay, well, yeah, that was Chud, um,
Hmm.
and I can't wait. I can't wait to hear about the next movie we watch.
It's gonna be a good one. It's got Bruce Willis in it.
Yep, it sure does, and he's a cop on the streets cleaning up the town.
Totally.
What movie am I thinking of? Is he a cop in something? Is it Die Hard? Are we watching Die Hard?
Yeah, he's a cop in Die Hard.
Exciting. Die
Hmm.
Hard's a good clickbaity episode. I thought Batman was going to be a clickbaity one for us, but it didn't really do any better or worse than normal.
Well, it was worth a shot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have any fun stories or tidbits you want to add on to the end? Because that's what we normally do at the end of the episode, end of Your Mother and Your Dog podcast, where we talk about random stuff.
I have a little story, but it's sort of dependent upon if you know who these people are.
Okay.
It's a music group. Have you heard of Duran Jones and the Indications?
I've heard of Duran Jones. He was on a Much Music Big Shiny Tunes disc back in the day.
Was he?
Well, let me just see if I can. Maybe I can add a little clip of Duran Jones to the podcast and see what happens. Like 2 seconds. Oh, that's a lot of work. What have I done?
It does sound like a lot of work. Well, anyway, basically, I was in the record shop the other day. The one that I don't want to say too much. Anyway, he have one of the lead singers. His name's Aaron Fraser. He happened to come in, and I got to meet him. And he was a very nice guy. And I would never have guessed that he was fairly famous until afterwards. Then I realized. There, that's my fun story. It's not as exciting if you don't know who I'm talking about.
So you wouldn't have known who he was unless he came in and said, "This is who I am."
Yeah, well, I got a little bit of a sense because he was like, "Oh yeah, yesterday me and my band played at the Phillips. I can't remember what it's called, like Phillips backyard something or rather."
Yep. Glitter Bomber was this
Yeah,
week.
yeah, 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 yeah. He played at that, and I was like, oh, "Okay, so you're in a band." And I mean, I didn't know the level of talent they brought to that thing. It was just local bands or something. But he's like, "Oh, I'm from Brooklyn." It's like, "Oh, he's from out of town." So I don't know, but anyway, yeah.
Well, we'll have
That
to give it a listen. Thank you for sharing that. Now I can put it in the description and get fans of the band thinking that we have somebody of theirs on the podcast.
hmm
That's a great story.
we'll rope him in.
Were you forced to like buy a CD or something of his? Get that autograph?
No.
Is there somebody named Duran Jones in the band?
Yeah, I think he's the founding member or one of the two founding members. I think they kind of share who's singing. I think Duran Jones sings about half the time. Aaron Fraser sings the other half of the time.
Then maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
It's possible. It's quite possible. I thought they were more like a newly formed group. But yeah, Aaron Jones, he's quite talented. I think he just came out with a solo album. I was listening to a bit of it. It's good.
Aaron Fraser, huh?
Yep. Fraser with a Z.
2012.
2021.
The band was formed in 2000.
Oh, the band. Oh, okay. Yeah, his solo album, I think, came out in 2021.
I'm definitely thinking of another band.
Okay.
Um, but that's exciting. I didn't have tickets to this weekend's Phillips backender thing, but I do have tickets to the one in July.
Who's playing then?
Half Moon Run is the only reason why I'm going,
Okay, never heard of him.
and that's okay.
I will say, like, when I mentioned this group to one of my coworkers, they hadn't heard of them, but then they listened, and then they immediately became very upset that they had booked tickets for another one like you have, and not for the one where they played because they liked them so much. So it's worth a listen. They're kind of like soul music.
Oh, okay, fun.
Yeah, so yeah, give it a listen if you haven't. Good.
Are you telling that to me or our listener?
Well, you and our one listener as well.
Okay.
Oh, I will say, just as a final aside, because I know that the time is a ticking. That Greg has not been at work, and he has 3 weeks off, and I miss him dearly. And that's it.
Well, thank you for fitting another Greg reference to the podcast. We should change our name to Your Mother Ate My Greg
We should, just for him.
for his birthday. When's his birthday? You know what? Don't tell me.
Okay.
He seems like a Scorpio.
It already happened this year, and he turned 30.
Gross.
Yeah, just like I will be in almost exactly a month.
Well, happy birthday in case I forget.
Thank you.
Wait, let's see if that. Do you know what day it's on, your birthday?
I don't.
It's the 19th of June, dummy.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't. Right. How could I forget?
It's a Sunday, so we won't be recording the podcast on the Sunday. So,
How disappointing.
yeah, but the Monday, the day after, maybe,
Yeah,
unless we keep doing Wednesdays.
you can plan a nice surprise for me. Whatever.
Yeah, like we can have a guest.
We could have a guest.
We can have the cat on,
Yes,
Moose.
Moose. I mean, if I'm in the other room, I could hold the microphone to the door, and you'd just hear him screaming for an hour, and that could just be the whole episode.
Well, that's much like what we do now.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse. Well, this is a wonderful episode of Your Mother Ate My Dog, the podcast. 16, maybe? Episode 16.
Mm-hmm.
C.H.U.D, Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dweller. Thank you to Taylor, my former coworker, for the wonderful movie recommendation. I hated it. 4.5 out of 10. Wish it was better. Next week, almost guaranteed will be a better movie. Can't wait. I don't know what I want to do for my next one, but we'll talk about that shortly.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much for being my friend.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye.